What is up, guys? This is Weasel for PokerWeasel.com. Welcome to part 2 of the Season of Storm series. Today we're going to be continuing our analysis in the hand history review Storm format. And same student as before, who we're referring to as Mr. J. The previous session was the day before this session. We'll see if we can get through every hand that was played on this particular day. At least every hand with a pot size of 20 big blinds or larger. Okay. So hopefully you already know what the Storm format is. Basic idea is we take every hand in a session. We're going to get through them as quickly as possible. We'll try and avoid any unnecessary delays, but if there's any big strategic errors, then obviously we will have to stop for a few minutes and figure out what's going on. Okay, so this hand should just be a fold pre-flop. Hopefully that's what Hero does. Cold full bet very strong in these games. That's fine. Next hand, Jack 9. Hero decides to 3x a cutoff. Okay. Flop texture. Usually I advise low limit students to bet here. I will occasionally check. I think it's quite sophisticated to mix in some of the weaker flush draws in checking back range, especially against a half stack. But I would expect Hero to bet here, based on our discussions. And I would expect Hero probably to barrel a turn and then give up on river. It's not the worst run out to barrel. It's not ideal to have two hearts in a hand. I wouldn't be overly concerned if Hero did decide to fire the river here, because obviously a decent amount of our semi-bluffs get there by the river, so we can represent that we've backed into a flush, etc. It's not ideal having the two hearts, however, and this is also why I think it's ideal to put this hand in a flop check plan, because this way you don't get forced into this situation on the river where we have Jack high, so we feel like we want to bluff, but our blockers are non-favorable, given that, villain can't have busted Queen Jack of Hearts right now because we hold the Jack. So it's whatever. I'm not concerned if Hero does bluff. I'm not concerned if he checks. Either option is going to be fine. Queen King, we decide to call a 3-bet, which is fine. You can also 4-bet this hand. Depends on your 4-betting strategy. We're going to be at least check calling the flop here. The C-bet sizing's half pot, so it doesn't send off any alarm bells or anything. Usually we should be calling this turn bet as well. Again, villain's sizing his bets reasonably well. Probably a bit on the small side, actually, given that we have an SPR of over 1 left by the river, but that's just all the more reason why we have to call turn. River now we just fold if villain fires again. We hope he checks back, and after he checks back, we expect to be good at showdown reasonably often. Maybe occasionally has ace-king combos that he can't fire the third barrel with. That's fine. Here played the hand okay. Pocket twos. We decide to overcall, and this is really just going to be a check fold scenario. I don't really see any way we can continue unless it gets checked around and the turn is at 2. So that's okay. Ace-king, 3-bet pre is usually good. We get cold called in the big blind. My basic recommendation is to give people a decent amount of respect when they cold call 3-bets. Usually going to have mid to high pocket pair, some type of decent Broadway like ace-queen for example. However, we flop pretty well. We're going to be firing a c-bet here. Standard c-bet sizing will be a bit smaller than normal just because the pot's bloated. So with 24 in the middle, our standard c-bet sizing is realistically going to be something like 10 or 11 BB here. You don't have to just bet 18 or anything like that. Pretty good sizing. I don't see any reason not to fire again on the turn. Probably about half pot will be okay. This is fine. Nothing wrong with this at all. Pretty well played hand. Pocket nines. Open raise from UTG. This can go a few different ways. The problem with checking is that it's probably slightly too strong for us to be comfortable check folding. Having said that, the way multi-way pots play at these games, low limits, if we do check, we probably have to check fold realistically unless villain bet's really small. So the other option is just to make a very small protection bet. Could be as small as 3 big blinds, for example. We just don't give any free cards that way. We might find out some equity shares if our opponents have trash type holdings. Yeah, probably we are pretty indifferent. I mean, we don't really want to fold against a 3 big blind bet, but we don't really want to call either. It's just whatever, so folding's okay. It's just not going to be a very plus EV spot to continue. But that's why you can maybe make it plus EV by making a smallish protection bet. But once you start betting too big, then you're overextending yourself with a hand that's really not worth that much in a 3-way scenario where there's already a 10 out there. And we have pocket 9s. Okay, here cuts off 3x's. We 3-bet in the big blind. That's fine. It's okay to c-bet here. I think the one thing that's clear is that we shouldn't be check folding. So depending on exactly how you construct your strategy, this is either going to be a c-bet with the intention of barreling gutters and hearts on the turn, or it's going to be a check defend, probably a check call on the king 6-2 texture. Unless we check and villain bombs it, then we have the liberty of being able to check fold. He checks back. Definitely should be firing delayed c-bet. Okay, this is very, very weak. It's not overly important theoretically how this hand should be played, because maybe it is supposed to be checked. We have some showdown value. We might even be able to check call the turn in this spot, since we do have the nut no pair currently. None of that matters though. What we're interested in is the fact that the population is folding way too much to a delayed c-bet here. So regardless of whether we have ace high or we have 10 high, we should generally be firing here. The possibility our opponent can call with worse even. He's going to fold too much, and at the same time some of his calling combos may be worse than our ace queen. For example, he may decide that he wants to now call something like 10 jack, queen 10 that he didn't want to bet the flop with. So a bunch of fold equity and the possibility of getting called by worse with a low frequency. Usually when you do find yourself in those kind of situations, and by the way, many players deny these situations exist. They'll say things like, well, either you're folding out better or you're getting called by worse. It can't be both. That's actually not really true. And here's an example of that situation. Our opponent can call us here with a gut shot, but he may decide he wants to fold something like pocket eights in this spot, since it doesn't have very good improvement potential. And usually I find that when that criteria is met, i.e. you're in a situation where you can fold out better and at the same time occasionally get called by worse, that usually means you have a very profitable bet, at least exploitatively. Now we're not saying this is a value bet. It's not. It's a semi-bluff. But the fact that we can occasionally get called by worse holdings increases our expectation. But ultimately it's just going to be profitable based on the fact that villain's going to be folding way too much. There's absolutely no reason for us to be checking here. We can't really check defending against the population. This was a wasted opportunity. Okay, ace 4 of hearts. 3-bet's fine. So's calling. Whatever you prefer, really. 3-bet's probably good at these limits because it's good to be depolarized in the big blinds. We don't really hit the flop, so I'm guessing check fold is fine here. Again, delayed c-bet. Hero has a leak here. Okay, 2 hands where he's missed a delayed c-bet. Probably not a coincidence. Same day. River, good bet sizing on the river, but should have picked up on the turn. This was badly played. Ace 10. Probably want a c-bet, fire any diamonds. Start off with a reasonably smallish bet, given that we're going to be barreling a decent chunk of turns, so this is fine. Quite like this. 8 doesn't really help us. This is now going to be a check back. That's good. River's kind of interesting. Obviously the board's paired and we have ace high, so our hand right now is kings and eights with an ace kicker. So we beat a lot of stuff our opponent can have, and we don't really know whether he's capable of value betting stuff like pocket 10s here or pocket 9s. Really no idea. I'm going to assume usually not. The other thing to keep in mind is that although this is a very good bluff spot for him, probably his bluffing frequency based on how the population plays won't be high enough here. Plus, on top of that, I would imagine the average player is disinclined to bluff in a spot where there's kings and eights on the board, i.e. 2 pair, because they're aware of the fact that people are wanting to cool down with ace high on these kind of textures. I would imagine this is actually going to be an exploitative fold. Theoretical call, but as an exploit, probably just give up here, I'd imagine. And he has a full house here. So, kind of a subtlety in making this decision. Like, you've got to be aware of some of the more subtle details to find the right play here. I think folding is going to be the best thing. Ace Queen, open from UTG. Another pretty interesting spot, because on the one hand, we have the nut gut shot, and the OESD, by the way, because obviously the king completes the nut gut shot, but it's also an OESD with the queen if an 8 comes, etc. So, we have an OESD. The only issue is that obviously it's a 3-way pot, and Jack 10-9 is an extremely dynamic board texture in the sense that it just connects with a whole bunch of hands that either villain could have in their calling range. So the possibility of getting raised, etc. here is very high. It's a kind of situation where I imagine we're probably going to be betting with a low frequency in general. So although we like to bet with OESDs in general, it's not super important whether we bet here with ace queen or not. We probably do want to bet with some low frequency. And I think in terms of finding the best play in the vacuum, I would say probably doesn't matter too much. Like, I don't mind if hero fires a c-bet here. I think we should probably keep our sizing on the small side if we do fire a c-bet. Like, I don't think we want to be betting more than about half pot. But I also think check defending's fine, because after checking we can easily defend this hand against a bet. And what that means is, let's say button has something like pocket 9s, which is very conceivably in his range, or some kind of 2 pair or some kind of straight. It means that we get to see a turn card for cheaper. Because if we bet and we get raised, we may even have to fold depending on the size of his raise. If we check and he bets and no one raises him, we get to see a turn card with a much higher frequency. So, seeing as this is a spot where both players can hit hard with the texture, it's It's really whatever. I mean, betting or checking is okay. I don't really care too much what hero does. Small bet's okay as well, that's fine. Question is, should we barrel the turn now? Again, I think it's very whatever. Don't think it matters too much. Should we call here? This is really a pot odds question. This is not a straightforward hand, by the way. Thankfully, most hands are not like this one. Some of the issues we face here. Number one, we don't know if all 8 of our outs are clean. I mean, generally, it's very good to have a straight draw on a rainbow turn. So the fact that there's 4 different suits on the flop increases the strength of our straight draw. Having said that, we have to take into the possibility that villain may have king-queen, like one of these villains may have stone cold nuts right now. Although, good news is, they didn't barrel. He didn't raise, basically. He didn't raise the flop. Neither villain raised here. And you think if someone has king-queen, they might be likely to raise. Although people do like to slow play stuff like queen-king on Jack-10-9 textures probably more than they should. But if we assume for a minute he doesn't have queen-king, then I suppose we can assume that all 8 of our straight outs are live. So we're going to hit about 16% of the time by the river. And we can see in terms of pot odds, we need to hit 22% of the time, but we have decent implied. I imagine this is probably going to be a call based on implied odds. However, if either of these players start having queen-king with any real frequency, then it may not be so good anymore for us. So I think this is probably an incorrect fold. You can see neither player has any straight or anything strong. They would have raised a flop if they did, and it's not like the deuce is going to improve them that much, although it did improve the small blind. Don't know how he has his hand exactly, but apparently the deuce hits him. So I think that was an incorrect check fold there. I think it's check defend. Based on implied, we don't quite get the direct odds. Okay, we 3-bet here pre-flop, that's fine. I actually think probably check folding's okay here. As you mentioned, just give the pre-flop 3-bet cold caller quite a bit of respect. He looks kind of tight as well, so this is okay. A6. In my experience, best play here is actually to underbet, to bet like 1/3 pot on these kind of textures. Definitely, yeah, the sizing's a bit large actually throughout this hand. The line's okay in general, like bet, check. And it works out pretty well when villain, has ace-5. Well, of course, we chop on this run out. But when we have such a weak kicker, usually a good idea just to keep the sizing small. Encourage people to call down with Queen X, 10x hands as well, and avoid isolating ourselves against any possible 2-pair combos. Obviously, villain can have straights as well in this spot, although he's probably going to raise a flop with those. So here in this situation, there's no guarantee that all villains are going to be raising stuff like Queen 10, Ace 10, even Ace Queen. I mean, this guy's really tight. He doesn't 3-bet a lot. So you don't want to isolate yourself against that part of their range. So sizing's kind of large here, I'd say, situationally. So we saw that in the first part. Here it definitely has some bet sizing issues. The bet sizing issues we identified in the previous were him basically not betting big enough for value. But here's a spot where he's just betting too big, I would imagine, against someone who is pretty tight. So it's kind of hard to extract value. So I don't really like this hand that much. I like the line, bet, check. I believe that's the right line on this run out, even after the heart gets there in the turn. But you have to keep sizing small. And the larger the sizing gets, the less profitable this line's going to be, because the more you lose when you isolate yourself against a better holding. Okay, here we defend 8-9. That's fine. Probably should be peeling one here. We have bottom pair and the lower end of the OESD. We hit on the turn. I actually think it's a good idea to raise here. It's really a type of freeze play, because there's 2 flush draws out there. So firstly, you can extract value from both flush draws with a small sizing. And number 2, it just increases the chance we get to see a showdown. Because if we just call and then the river is king of spades and villain fires a bet, it's just very difficult to know whether we should be calling or not. Having said that, 8-9 is not really quite strong enough to be a value raise in its own right. It just benefits a lot from the protection element and the freeze play element of it all. So usually a good idea to raise, but if we do face a re-raise here, we have to strongly evaluate whether it's a good idea to continue, because villain can have stuff like king-queen. He can also have us in not so great shape with stuff like free roll straights. If he has something like ace-8 of spades, that's bad for us because we chop, but he can win the whole pot 20% of the time when he spikes on the river. But I do think raising is the best play here. River, it's possible still that raising is the best play. And I think it's very easy to raise fold now on the river. I don't think he has a flush. He could still have some better hands. Like he could still have queen king and just be quite a passive player in general. I think best thing is to raise it up to about 18 here and just fold to a re-raise. So I think we're missing value here. I think we definitely should have raised a turn. There's no reason for him to see a free river like this. And I wouldn't expect him to have this hand when he bets 8 into 28. Very, very passive guy by the looks of things. 3-bet here pre-flop's fine. Very good texture, I think. Probably auto 2-barrel. He check min raises. This is usually a set, by the way, the majority of the time. Or it could, of course, be a straight with like 8-9 of diamonds or something. So no need to re-raise because we don't have any fold equity right now. We just have ace high, but we do have pretty good implied, so we should just make the call here. Villain checks. It's actually quite a tricky line from Villain because if he has anything that's legitimately strong on the flop, there's no reason why he wouldn't barrel this turn. He can't be scared of the 5 completing anything. So either he's bluffing on the flop, and now he's check folding, or he's going for a double check raise. And interestingly, when someone check raises the flop, it's actually probably more likely he's going for a check raise here, and I don't think we really want to get check raised, something like ace 5. So it's a spot where you will still get some folds, but you just have to be a bit more careful in general. It's not like a regular float bet spot in a single raised pot where the guy bets the flop and then checks a turn and he's folding a bunch. Situation where someone's check raised a flop in a 3-bet pot, actually their turn check looks as much trappy as it does weak. So you have to be very careful. Villain is still polarized at this point on this turn card. So although he's taking a passive line, he's polarized. So might be a new concept, I'm not sure. But the idea is either this guy's genuinely weak and he's check folding, or he's going for a check raise. He can't really have too many mid-strength hands because he check raised the flop. So I would just check back here and free roll a river. Don't want to get check raised here. River, I'd make a somewhat large bet now, just because, you know, he can have something like pocket 7s and we could be bluffing. That's the basic idea. So, want to see a nice big bet here. Don't like the sizing. Maybe he's genuinely weak this time. Maybe that's why he's folding. But when he has something, he's going to be paying off a larger bet than this. So, again, I think not quite maximizing that. There are certain types of hands that will make a small stab on the turn there. By the way, when you are float betting against a polarized range, you have to use a small sizing typically. And the hands you're going to do it with are those that are quite vulnerable, but are happy to play bet fold against a check jam. Okay, kings. We 3-bet pre, bet the flop, fine. Bet the turn, fine. Not really anything to say about that. Looks good. Bet sizing's fine. King 9, open raise, check back flop. 5 turn and river for value. Still bet the river. Yeah, probably should be a bit bigger, but okay. 7-10. Loosish open. Check fold's okay here. Don't have a big problem with that. Fine. 8-9. 3-bet's okay. You don't really have to 3-bet this hand. I mean, when we look at Villain, he's kind of tight and he's also a fish. So we could also just call pre-flop and, you know, hope that he's going to be making some big mistakes post-flop. We, however, still expect to see the delayed c-bet. There's no excuse for not delayed c-betting. That's fine. Sizing's okay. Here we bet small because it's a protection bet. Now he picks up the 9. Nothing wrong with that. Here we call pre-flop. This is just going to be a check fold. Terrible flop texture for us. Queens. Want to squeeze here. 8 is fine. Obviously a good flop texture. Can sometimes think about occasionally slow playing top set, but it really does depend on the other cards as well. And I think on a 9 and a 7, probably just going to tend towards betting. If we wanted, we could actually just put this as part of a very small bet sizing range as well, because obviously it has a negative blocker effect on opponents. Although we want to bet big for value in general, could occasionally be one of the exceptions. Where, you know, we kind of rep that we have something like pocket 10s and we're just going for a protection bet, etc. This line's okay though. It's kind of hard to misplay top sets, so as long as you get money in the middle rather than trying to slow play to the river or something like that. This is probably just a check fold. Keep in mind that it's not really about raw equity, it's more about potential in terms of things like, it's much better to have like a 10-9 gut shot here. Or something like ace-jack of hearts, spades, diamonds. Ace-jack. In fact, it's probably even better to have king-jack than ace-jack in this spot. As played, it's not like super wide in the flop. I'm not overly concerned by this. It's not a big mistake. River, we just 5 for value. We don't check. 5 for value. Sizing's kind of small again. I mean, do we really think we're ever beat here? Not really. Although he does raise, and we should probably fold against that, but again, the sizing's not quite right. It's okay to, bet half pot here as a bluff and then use a larger sizing for value. We're not playing high stakes poker here. We don't need to be balanced at all. So I'd say another bet sizing inaccuracy in that hand. Calling's okay, so is 3-betting. Check raise would be okay here. Okay, we get 3-bet. Again, this is usually a set, so, I mean, we don't need to panic. We just figure out what the best play is against the set. It's a very large 3-bet. That's the first thing we have to take into account here. This is a standard c-bet sizing. This is a standard check raise sizing. A standard 3-bet sizing is about 25 here, okay? So when someone makes 40 big blinds, we can make two very big assumptions, which are often extremely accurate. Number one, this guy's a fish, okay? That's the first assumption, because if it was a good reg, he knows that this is not a normal 3-bet sizing. There'd be no reason for a good reg to just come out with 39 big blinds. Doesn't make any sense. He's just going for 3x because he doesn't know any better. He possibly knows that check raise is 3x, so he just assumes that a 3-bet should be 3x as well. It shouldn't. So that's the first assumption, this guy's a fish. Second assumption is he's never bluffing, because when people make this type of bet sizing error, they don't do it as a bluff ever. It's the same with the 3x 4-bet preflop. It's never a bluff. It could sometimes be a value hand that's overvalued. Like, it's not impossible he ends up having, for example, something like King 10, and he thinks it's the nuts. It doesn't happen very often with hands like that, though, but it could happen. The point is, it's never a bluff. Anyway, unfortunately, I think we're just about priced out here. We need to hit 32% at the time, we're only hitting 18% at the time. We do have some implied, but without doing the maths, I'm going to assume this is actually going to be a fold here. Against a regular size 3-bet, we would defend, but against a very large 3-bet, we don't defend. So here we 3-bet against the min raise, which is fine. Check fold flop probably. Delayed c-bet on the turn, that's good. And probably follow through on the river. I mean, 9's not the best river, but probably should be firing. I don't see why not. Yeah, this is good. I think this is pretty well played hand. Good example of what to do in a 3-bet pot when we miss. Here we call pre-flop. Definitely peeling the flop. Definitely peeling the turn. River. I think this is probably a call. Although the small sizing doesn't mean he's more likely to be bluffing. In fact, he's less likely to be bluffing. But we do get a better price, first of all. And those two variables cancel each other out, usually. I.e., he's not bluffing as much with his small sizing, but we get a better price. So it doesn't really increase or decrease the profitability of the situation when he's betting small. However, what it does mean in this context, when we have something, a bluff catcher as strong as 10-jack, is that when he starts betting small, the possibility of his value range being wider, and him thinking he can eke out thin value with stuff like ace-king, king-queen, aces, the probability of that goes up. So situationally, it is better that we're facing small bet sizing when we have something as strong as 10-jack, because you see, against like an overbet jam, 10-jack is a bluff catcher. Against a 12 big blind bet here, which is less than half pot, 10-jack's not really a bluff catcher anymore. It beats stuff like ace-king, king-queen, aces. So I think definitely have to make the call here. You're still going to lose a lot, but you have to make the call. Fours, we co-call and open. Best play here is probably to bet like 3 big blinds in position on the flop. I mean, you want to protect here. You're going to get a lot of fold equity after everyone checks to you, and your hand's very vulnerable. So this is unfortunate. Still should bet, by the way. Probably like 4 or 5 BB now. Yep, very passive. Now fold river. Okay, that was unfortunate. We probably should have even won that hand. 6 BB. Yeah, we should call a small 3-bet here. Villain checks. The population is not really folding as much as they should be to float bets in 3-bet pots. It's not like float bets in single raise. Like the average guy's maybe folding like 40% here or something. So you don't necessarily want to stab wildly. But 6 is the kind of hand where it needs protection, and it doesn't mind if villain decides he wants to check call with stuff like ace king, because it beats those kind of hands anyway. So definitely a flop bet here. Turn. Yeah, you could raise here, I suppose. And the argument for raising is that villain probably c-bets his flush draws, so we can basically just pretend that pocket sixes is the nuts right now, because villain doesn't usually have a flush. Besides, even if he does, we have 20% equity to hit on the river. So actually, probably even the best play here. Almost set up the stacks. Pretty good attempt. Yeah, I think that was actually a pretty nice hand, but should have bet the flop, okay? So wasn't actually played correctly. Fives. This is whatever. Call or fold. Probably even fold at these limits. Not really that fussed about this spot. Ace King. Cool or 4-bet. This guy seems on the aggro side, so if you want to put in 4-bet, that's okay. Very good flop. He checks. We should just bet. That's fine. Very unlikely we're beaten there. Almost impossible, I'd say. Ace Queen. This guy looks like he just donk bets. Okay, so single raise pot, he donks. I'm assuming best players to raise. There are some straight draws, flush draws out there, so probably just raise it. That's fine. We of course be wary of the 3-bet. That would indicate villain maybe has now aces up or a set. Looks very good so far. 5 is relatively neutral, although it's not impossible he has a 5. You know, it's definitely a fishy looking guy. So we want to just follow through with a bet here. As for the best sizing, I think we're going to struggle to get stacks in. Besides, we don't necessarily want to get stacks in. So I think we just play this and not worry too much about setting up SPR here. It's going to be a little bit of a stretch. I think by the time we start getting all the stacks in, we'll be overplaying our ace queen slightly here. So I think we just bet reasonably large, but don't worry about setting up stacks. It's just not going to quite happen. So I'd say want to bet like 17 here or something like that. Again, super small sizing. And just fold this a turn raise. He probably does have a 5 when he plays this way, but again, sizing's very bad. 5s. Just fold here pre. Don't know what's going on here. Super large squeeze. Easy game, just give that one up. Ace 5, 3-bet pre. That's fine. Again, check fold the flop. Yep, okay. Aces. Put in the 4-bet, that's good. Villain folds. Ace 8. Cool, okay. 3-bet's okay as well. Probably should just call with the 1 card OESD. It's probably going to be slightly better than raising. If he checks, we stab the turn, obviously. And bet fold river. Or he just donks. I think we have to call here. He could have a flush pretty frequently, but you know, we only need him to not have a flush 25% of the time or 26% of the time. Could of course be value betting an 8 as well, and we chop. So it's just a call here. We can't really fold this. And he's actually bluffing. That's good for us, obviously. Ace Jack 3-bet, okay. Probably a check fold. If the suits on our hand were reversed, we had the ace of spades, we might be able to make a smaller c-bet, but I don't really see us making a lot of money in these spots. I think check fold's good. 6s. So this guy's c-bet's multi-way. I think I'll just fold the 6s. Might be a defend in theory, but you can really just shut everything down 3-way. No one's betting as close to as aggressively as they should be in multi-way spots. Plus 6s, okay, it doesn't have 0 improvement possibilities because there are the 5, which gives the OSD, the 8 for the gutter, the 3 for the gutter as well. So it's not a completely dead end hand. There are ways we can improve, but honestly, you may as well just fold the flop here. Because this is going to happen so much, by the way, is he's going to be stronger than he should be. He's going to be barreling the turn more frequently than we might expect to if we're playing, a theoretically optimal opponent. So we're just going to end up calling the flop and folding the turn a whole bunch. Might as well save our flop investment for a better opportunity. Ace 4, we open raise pre. Yeah, great. Check raise, okay. This is good. Nice turn card. Are we setting up stacks here? Let's just double check. So effective is 90 at the moment. So the way we do this, we just look at the difference between 90 and 20, which is in the middle, 70. Divide it by 3 to figure out how it's set up a pot size bet. So it seems that we'd have to bet somewhere around 23. Now, we're going to struggle to get the stacks in. However, one thing we do know is ideally we want to get as much of the stacks in as possible. So I think we should be betting bigger than 13.4. I think we should be betting, close to 20 big blinds. I think we should be betting like 18 here or something. I don't think this is right. Unfortunate bet sizing issues. Queen 10. Definitely calling this small 3-bet. Definitely floating the flop. I think when villain bets 9 big blinds, we should possibly call again. I imagine we're going to be behind here very frequently, but we get a very good price. We're sometimes good, and we'll sometimes improve to like trip 10s or something, so probably a marginal call, but it's marginal. I don't really care if here are folds. It's whatever. Please stab here. Yep. That sizing's okay, I suppose. Just got to make sure that if we're going to bet that sizing on the flop, we definitely follow up when we pick up a diamond. I'm not really sure about this. I mean, certainly I would be betting a little bit larger when I have 8 high. I mean, this is a very good sizing if you have like a 9x or pocket 10s, or you have ace queen high. But with 7-8, it just doesn't seem quite right. I'd be betting a bit larger. We don't necessarily want to encourage our opponents to call with ace high right now because we have 8 high. Whereas if we have pocket 10s, then we want people to call with ace high. So it doesn't seem like quite the right sizing here. On the turn again, we do value that fold equity. We want to be betting like 8 here or something. And, you know, getting people to fold marginal stuff. Okay, anyway, probably priced in and fold the river. That's okay. Again, not 100% convinced about that sizing. It might be okay, but that's definitely not the sizing I would bet. Let's put it that way. Okay, so here, villain opens. We cold call ace king. Might be slightly better as a 3-bet, but this is okay. Villain checks. We bet. Okay, pretty good hand, obviously. We've got top heads up kicker. We've got the nut flush draw. Should fire again. Sizing, no, it's just not good sizing at all. I don't get why we'd bet 1/3 pot. And, I mean, surely we have to value bet the river. I mean, especially we bet so small on flop or turn. How can we not value bet this river? It's just insane. Because there's just too high of a possibility that he has something like 10s, jacks, queens, kings with a diamond, or he has ace queen, ace jack. And we've allowed him to get to the river with all of those hands because we bet 1/3 pot on the turn or something ridiculous. This is just a tragic hand. He ends up having a set, but I think the way that should have gone down is maybe he would have even raised at one point. Although if he's not raising against a small bet, he's not raising against the large bet. Obviously, I guess he's just again a passive guy, or he's scared of the diamonds, which is a legit reason not to raise 5s. But against a small sizing, you have to raise 5s anyway. So against the sizing that Hero used, he's played the hand very passively. Because although he doesn't have to raise against 2/3 pot bet on the flop and turn, he does have to raise against a 1/3 pot bet. Like, you can't just call 5s here, by the way. It's terrible, because you're letting the other player get to see his flush draws too cheaply on the river. So it's a very bad play by villain here. But Hero's played the hand badly as well, and I think he gets lucky in the sense that he's used a terrible bet sizing plan throughout the hand, and it just so happens that villain has a set. So situationally very lucky for Hero right now. He should have lost more on that hand if he played it correctly. 10-9, we just cold call. I think best play is actually to raise against these small sizings. So normally we just call, obviously. You know, we have top pair, weak kicker, we've got the back doors going on. We've got the backdoor clubs, we've got some backdoor straights going out there. So when villain c-bets 4 into 6, we just call. When he c-bets 2.2, now he's just getting to see turn cards too cheaply with all of the overcards in his range. So this is definitely a raise in this situation. We want to raise it up to about 7 or so. Fire the turn, check back the river. Here, it might seem now that it's more of an obvious raise. It's actually less of an obvious raise on the turn because some draws complete. He's betting bigger. So it might actually be okay just to call down now. Like, the flop's definitely a raise. The turn can actually go either way despite the fact that we improve. I'd be tempted to at least think about raising, but this is okay. Yeah, 1/3. I think this is a raise fold on the river against a small sizing. I think this is very passive. Yeah, this is a raise. And again, we've already seen a spot on the river where I've recommended raising and the villain ends up having us beat, etc. But it doesn't matter too much. This is another one of those spots. Okay, this time he does have worse. All we care about is the long run, and for me this is a raise fold on the river against a small sizing. If he bombs it, obviously we just call, or even fold in extreme cases against very large sizings. But against 1/3 pot size bet, I mean, does he really have 2 pair plus here? I don't think so. So we should just be raising kind of smallish, maybe 20 or something, and then fall into a re-raise. So we're missing value. This is just an overcall pre-flop. That's fine. Pretty good situation for us, but it's a bit of a long shot. We're just going to be check folding a whole bunch post-flop. Here's a flop where we check fold. Fine. Really looking to flop some kind of decent draw there. Call a 3-bet. That's fine. With 10-8. Villain bets about half pot. We have the gut shot in the back doors. I think we have to defend here. I think this is a call on the flop. Villain 2 barrels. Now, normally we should be calling, at least in theory. We call again, we fill in checks, we bluff the river potentially. I think at low limits with the paired texture and the fact that we only have a 10 high flush draw, I think we can make an exploitative fold here. I mean, this is theoretically correct. I think as an exploit, we can actually make a tight laydown here on the turn. So it's theory versus practice. And in theory, now you should think about bluffing the river. And seeing as we can possibly have a full house here, I think we should just be shoving all in. Like, if we're gonna call the turn, we have to shove the river, otherwise don't call the turn. And this is why I don't think it's a big deal if we decide that we're gonna just fold the turn. Because folding the turn's okay, but if you call the turn and then don't take good bluffing opportunities on the river, then you're essentially just calling the turn without odds. Although it's close with the combo draw, I guess. I mean, it's not so bad when we have the gut shot as well. I mean, we have 9 flush outs. We have the 3 9 outs, which are non-diamonds. So that's 12 outs. We hit 24% of the time. We need some implieds, and it's debatable how much implieds we have when the board's already paired. So it's not going to be a huge mistake given that we got the combo draw, but really, to make this profitable, you have to be committed to shoving the river as a bluff. If you don't want to shove the river as a bluff, then don't call the turn in the first place. Wow, we actually chopped this one up. You can see it would have been nice, right? Just jam the river. There's no way he can call with his 8-9, etc. Would have been a very good situation for us if we'd be results oriented. Ace-King. Very large squeeze here. I mean, or 3-bet. Instantly we should know something's up here. Probably going to be King's Plus with a much higher frequency than usual. Checks back. I think we just give up here. I don't think we want to bluff with this hand. He has 5, so probably want to attack this guy. Clearly not a great player. Doesn't make sense for him to be making a 4x3 out with 5s, obviously. Aces with 3-bet, fine. Yep, betting's good here. Face a raise is unfortunate. We have a call here for a couple of reasons. Number one, sometimes we'll still have the best hand. And number two, we're obviously drawing to the nut flush, so wow, okay. I mean, you just got to run the basic maths here. Like, you've got 9 outs to hit, right? So you're going to hit about 18%. You need to hit 24%, but you've got implieds because you've got the nut flush draw. So this is too tight. You can't fold this hand here. Jacks. I actually think you can just fold this one straight away. And again, it's more of an exploitative play at low limits. I don't really see any decent reason to stick around here. You're going to be folding the turn every time anyway. So it's just a limit-based thing. I suppose we should call here. We have position and it's 3-way. Wow, okay. This is just a fold pre. Squeeze. Yeah, this is a close one. I think check fold's fine though. Yep, that's okay. Again, it could be different if the suits are reversed and we had the ace of diamonds instead of the queen of diamonds. That would help. 7-4. This guy apparently has folded to some 3-bets, so it might be a good idea to polarize here against this guy. Probably only 2 of 3, but I mean, let's have a quick look. Yeah, 2 of 3. 2 were on the cutoff. The time he was 3-bet on the button, he didn't fold. I think I'd 3-bet though. Yeah. He does call. We should probably see bet for protection, although it can be tempting to try and take a check call line with these hands. It's just too vulnerable for it to be especially effective. I think on the turn, again, this is a somewhat unique spot. I think we should be perhaps considering underbetting. We don't necessarily want to play for stacks here, but we don't want to give a free turn card. We also don't want to play a check call guessing game from this point onwards. So a little bit large here for my liking. I think if you can find the best play, which is to actually decrease sizing, it's somewhat unorthodox, but then again, this is quite a unique situation. So I think even 10 big blinds would be a very good sizing. Okay, gets checked down. That's good. Alright. So close to the best play. Small bet sizing issues. I think I'd like to see more 3-bets here. I don't know whether it's just situational, i.e. it just so happens that the hands we've looked at here is defending and he does 3-bet a bunch, but this is at least the second offsuit ace that we're just calling here, which is okay. You should 3-bet with some frequency as well. Bet the turn. Probably fire river for value as well. You just have to keep your sizing relatively neutral. Like 9 or 10 big blinds. You don't want to bet 15 or something. Oh my goodness, we just checked back. Alright. Ace 5. Okay, fine. Fire turn and river. Fine. Okay. Remember, you don't need to win every time in order to value bet. You just need to be good over 50% of the time when called. That's it. So it's okay for you to value bet and lose. That doesn't mean you did something wrong. Yeah, we want to see nice big sizings here. That's not a great turn card. That may impact on the sizing we use, so we can't really bomb it anymore on an ace because we obviously lose to some stuff now. I think we can still bet 10 or 11 though. Okay, half pot, alright. And now we just check back. We just fold here. I mean, we just lose to everything basically. It's an interesting spot. Okay, again, we know this guy's a weaker player based on his sizing. Could re-raise. Yeah, that's fine. He jams. Possibly should stack here. I mean, it's close. We don't really know the guy, so we don't know if he just only does this with kings or aces, for example. Might be tempted to call it off, though. It really depends on the history. What we've seen from the guy. So, in this hand, we call and open. This guy c-bets, so obviously calling at least one. We have to call again on the turn card. River, we just fold. We have a bluff catcher, fine. Ace 3. Okay, let's see that again. We open raise, button cold calls. Very good hand to put in check calling range. I don't really see what c-betting accomplishes here. Check call is good. Villain raises, we call. Have to because we got the gutter, even if it's a long shot. I think fold on the double flush draw turn. It's just going to be too difficult to navigate rivers here. It might be different if it was like a rainbow spot, but I think I'll just fold here. Queen Jack. So I think this guy ISOs. He ISOs. We decide to call. It's okay, I guess. Check fold on this texture. Yep. Ace Jack. Yeah, we can bet. Also, another very nice hand to check call, because we're not really going to get 3 streets of value with the jack kicker, and we have some protection because we have the jack of spades, so probably would start off with a flop check here. Turn is fine. River is check fold. Yep, good. This is okay. Stab. Wow, we're just missing float bets for no reason. Okay. Easy bet here on the flop. Easy bet here on the turn. Easy bet on the river. Yep, okay, good. Doesn't matter what he has. Should have picked it up on the flop, probably. So, because we delayed, he picked up equity, then he didn't fold, so... It's partly unlucky, partly just misplayed the flop. Yep, bet cool, it's fine. Probably don't fold this hand at any point. It's not good if the diamond comes. Yeah, this is fine. And if he fires a river, probably should even seriously think about calling, because I don't really see how he has a king. Anyway, after he raises the flop. Not a lot of king x combos raising the flop, apart from maybe king 3 or something. This is fine, so ISO raise and we cold call. Just fold here. Nothing for us on this flop. Ace Jack. Another possible check call spot, I think. Probably decent line. This is okay though. And then river check fold. Yep. Okay. That's fine. 9-8. Probably should bet here. You can size up slightly. It's good to bet small here, but anyway, it's not a big deal. Probably should call here. We've got some good implieds. I mean, this is a guy who probably has something. So if he wasn't all in right now, we should even just jam over the top. He is all in, so obviously pretty trivial call with the nuts. So that was a cold call pre-flop, I think. So UTG 2.6x's, so we call, he checks, we should bet. We can bet quite small here, we're reasonably well protected, and he could be check raising with a low frequency. Fire turn, check back river. You don't need to bet super large in these spots, by the way. We fold to river donk, that's okay. Ace queen. Definitely bet, probably 4 big blinds here. As an exploit, it's okay to go large with value hands. That's a common theme throughout these hand history reviews so far. Turn, bigger sizing please. If you bet king jack, that's fine. Just bet flop and turn here for half pot. Actually wait, he's short, so probably you can still bet the flop actually, because we have a relatively high equity holding given this king jack high. And the raw equity is more important against short stacks, but I'd probably just check the turn rather than committing myself. If you want to shove the river when he checks, that's fine, but he doesn't check, he jams, we fold. Alright, we'll have to make this the last one, I think. I think we got through quite a few of them. We didn't quite complete the session, but got through quite a few hands. Another great hand to check call. But when villain min bets, you have to readjust your plan. You don't just carry on check calling, you go for a check raise instead now. Okay, we hit, which is nice. I think with a pot size bet left, we just shove river. The 10's not necessarily bad when we're playing at this stack depth. He may even have a 10, in which case he's not falling, so just shove. Okay, great, good stuff. Alright, so we've seen a whole number of bet sizing issues. It seems to be one of the biggest problems at the moment is heroes not really understanding when to size up, when to size down with the sizings. It's also some just really trivial pot odds mistakes where hero is just priced into calling and he's just not defending. Like he'll either have the implied or he'll have the direct pot odds and he's just not defending when he should be. So that seems to be a bit of a leak as well. Probably a few other things came out in the video. Alright, so I think we'll probably do one more hand history review with this student, then we'll expand the format to include some of the other students. We can see some different types of mistakes, etc. So thanks very much for watching. This was Weasel for PokerWeasel.com.